All right, let's start chapter 8 in Bio 105. Chapter 8 deals with the nervous system. Now, the nervous system coordinates body functions to maintain homeostasis. So let's look at some general information about the nervous system. And we're going to start off with the organization of the nervous system. So we can divide our nervous system into two main parts. We have the central nervous system, which comprises the brain and spinal cord. This is the commanding and integrating centers of our nervous system. It controls the other parts of the nervous system and thus our body, and integrating. So we'll talk about what integration is in a little bit. The other part is our peripheral nervous system. So the peripheral nervous system is pretty much everything else. This is a portion of our nervous system outside of the central nervous system. It includes nerves, which are what we see here, and ganglia, which are these swellings that we see here and there. And I'll talk about ganglia in a little bit. So our peripheral nervous system links our central nervous system to the body. And there are three divisions of our peripheral nervous system. The first is the sensory division, and these are nerve fibers that transmit impulses to the central nervous system from our sensory receptors. And sensory receptors are what you can think of as our senses. Next is the motor division. So these are nerve fibers that are going to transmit impulses from the central nervous system to effectors. An effector is a muscle or gland that responds to stimulation. Okay? So, we can divide our motor division into two parts. One is our somatic nervous system, and these are motor pathways that lead to skeletal muscles, and this is voluntary, all right? Next is our autonomic nervous system, or ANS. These are portions of our nervous system that controls the actions of the viscera. So the viscera is our internal organs, and this is involuntary. We don't think about our heart rate, we don't think about digestive activities, right? So that's our autonomic nervous system. And our autonomic nervous system can be divided into two parts. One is the parasympathetic division, and this is a division of our autonomic nervous system that controls the normal activities of the viscera. So what's going on right now? Your normal heart rate, breathing rate, digestion, stuff like that. The other is the sympathetic division. And this is a division of our autonomic nervous system that activates the body to cope with stress or excitement. So this deals with the 4 F's. So fight, flight, freeze, or mating. Okay? So, you know, if a bear were to come in here, right, hopefully I wouldn't fight it because I would probably lose. Not probably, I would. But then my other reactions would be to run away, or if I'm, some cases, I can get scared and I don't know what to do, okay? So what you see with the sympathetic division, it gets activated, your heart rate goes up, your breathing goes up, your blood pressure goes up, you start to sweat, you actually get dry mouth as well. So the third division of our peripheral nervous system is called the enteric nervous system. And this is a complex network of neuron cell bodies and axons within the walls of the digestive tract. Now we'll talk about what neuron cell bodies and axons are here in a little bit. This is capable of controlling the digestive tract independently of the central nervous system. So it's kind of this odd bird here. Everything else interacts with our central nervous system, brain and spinal cord in some way. Our enteric does not. And this is the only time I'm going to mention it. So let's look at the functions of the nervous system. So looking at the functions of the nervous system, so sensory receptors are going to monitor internal and external changes. And so they're going to send impulses to the central nervous system. And so in our central nervous system is where we're going to have integration. So here our central nervous system processes and interprets that sensory input and essentially decides what to do. So then it's going to send out a signal to an effector, and that's where we have our motor output. So our impulse goes to effector, and our effector responds to the stimulus. Now, if this sounds familiar, it should, because that is a 3-step process I talked about when I talked about homeostasis. Okay? So, but there's a few things here, right? So with homeostasis, I talked about, if your body temperature goes up, that's sensed by thermoreceptors in your skin, sends a signal to your brain, particularly your hypothalamus. Your hypothalamus interprets that, sends a signal out, and if you're warm, it sends a signal out to sweat glands. You start to sweat, that's a motor output. If you're cold, it sends a signal to skeletal muscles, and you start to shiver. That's a motor output there. So that was an involuntary thing, right? All right, so, I don't have to use this bear example, but let's say you're driving in your car, you see a light change from green to yellow. What do? In most cases, most of my students have said they put the foot on their gas, right? So that sensory input information, light going from green to yellow, we have integration. You interpret what's going on there and decide what to do. You put your foot on the gas, okay? This also works with reflexes. So if I touch something hot, you know, now it doesn't go to my conscious brain, it just goes to my spinal cord if I touch something hot, and my hand's gonna jerk away from that. All right, so that's the motor output.